You need interesting projects to inspire people. The title of the film, Eco House, is interesting, and you need interesting examples, outliers even, that inspire people to think, oh wow, look at that.
I think it is a good way to go around things is having a whole estate where it's got its own ecosystem in a way.
It's about making an interesting place to live. I really don't like the term when people talk about sort of making decent housing. I think decent doesn't sound that interesting. It's better than indecent, I suppose. But you want to make something that's more edifying, or might lift the spirits, or could almost, could even be interesting.
Do you think then that if the context is so important, do you think the approach to building it should change for each location?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, historically that would have been through local materials that they can get hold of.
So I think the idea of using kind of plant-based materials. Well, here's a good one. This is cork bark, so it's the bark from a cork tree. It's been used in construction for a long time, but mainly for flooring, for insulation materials or whatever. There's a beautiful building called the Cork House in Eton, which is a small kind of prototype building made entirely out of this material. A little bit of timber, but they use it. The wall is, 350 millimeters thick, solid cork blocks, not even glued together. Yeah, so this is the piece at the bottom here. It's a piece of rammed earth that students made. There's a great tradition of rammed earth buildings actually in this country and all over the world. So you're locally excavating the material, you're putting it into a mould. We've got some little prototypes here somewhere. Maybe not. You put it into a mould, you compact it, you compress it, and you make a monolithic solid wall from earth, and it's the clay that binds it together.
In architecture education, it's a hard one and to grapple with this, because if we were to do things sort of sustainably, you wouldn't be doing any architecture at all. Do you know what the Stirling Prize is? So yeah, the best building in the UK. So one of the shortlisted ones was this office building retrofit. And I've only looked at surface level, and they're still using the classic quite high intensity, sort of high carbon materials, like glass, etc. And the way they classed it as zero carbon, but by doing this they went and planted a load of trees in South America, which is kind of just bullshit, if I'm allowed to say that, sorry. And and there's something, going and doing it in another country, something weirdly colonial about this sort of carbon offsetting. There's not a sort of regulated way of saying zero carbon yet, I don't think, but you can just claim it out of the air.
I think it's just this problem of just repeating how we do, there's ways of building a family house on a greenfield site, and that's what the house builders like to do. There's not the incentive for them to do any different at the moment. You could legislate to say, actually, no, these should be better, they should perform better.
Even in policies in building, so when you build something brand new, there's no tax on the materials. But then if you're sort of retrofitting an existing building and hence sort of not creating more carbon or utilising the embodied carbon of these materials, then you'll be taxed 20% of materials. But there is a push to teach all these sort of more sustainable ways of construction. A lot of it is just historic ways of construction, sort of how they used to build.
Do you think that a catalyst for these sorts of changes and these sorts of approaches, do you think Grenfell was playing a role in initiating that change?
It's so tragic in so many ways, that, and what's is ironic is that the work that was ultimately dangerous were the improvements made to the building to make it thermally more efficient. So they were insulating that building with panels, but they were insulating it with panels that were highly flammable, it turns out. And we shouldn't be putting residents and people at risk by specifying things that burn, And also it's a petrochemical based plastic. There's no need to be using those in construction. We shouldn't be drilling for oil to build buildings. It makes absolutely no sense.